Good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me. Hopefully you're all connecting to audio okay. Any problems, let me know. You're all very, very welcome. Welcome to the second session of our Author Brand Challenge. This is being recorded, so if you do not want to have your face on screen, absolutely no problem. If at any point you have any questions, please pop them into the chat, because then I can keep an eye on the sorts of questions I'm getting, and I can then try and make sure I've got enough time at the end. Hi, Alice. So hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining, as I say. Really lovely to see you all. We can make sure that everyone's muted just for now. Hey, Lisa. Just to make sure that we don't have any background. Hey, Grace. Lovely to see faces. But like I say, no pressure. There's a quiz here I was supposed to do last night, and I don't know if it was there and I just forgot to mention it or you didn't see it or whatever. So we're going to do that today. Just for me being nosy, just to see what people are up to and what they like and what they dislike. And that's quite easy for you to look at, hopefully. Hopefully that just pops up. And then we're going to get cracking because we've got so much content to get through. This is my favourite one of all the sessions, I've got to say, because we get through some really fun stuff, and I love being able to chat about these sort of comp titles and things. So, okay, I'm sure some of you will have done this work, but it's always a good idea to go through it anyway. So we're going to recap just very, very quickly what we did yesterday for anyone who hasn't had a chance to join last night or to watch the YouTube video yet. So we started to think about what people might think about your author brand and your books when they think about your if we did a poll, if we think about your branding, the sorts of books you write, that sort of thing. And we thought about some of the keywords that might be associated with your book and your author brand. And then we had a quick look and considered what sort of social media platforms you're on, what's out there, what would work well for you. And then I recommended a digital audit in terms of your follower numbers and things like that. We also considered the importance of understanding and tracking your social media numbers. Hi, Matthew. To keep your messaging on point, and to also for you to switch things up when things aren't working. So marketing is so much about the data and checking what's working and what's not, and then tweaking accordingly. So just giving you a bit of insight into how that all works. And of course we googled ourselves and took a note of what came up, and then hopefully we did do that social media audit. If you haven't had a chance to, I genuinely recommend just putting a bit of time aside to do that. And then doing that monthly so that you can really stay on top of your data that you own. So now we're going to have a bit of fun. So fans of which books and authors and TV shows and films would love your writing is going to be a big part of this discussion today. So what I love to do is kind of not just think about books that have themes within them that are similar to yours, or place settings, or the same animals or the same types of people, whatever, but actually what kind of readers you want to attract and what sort of books, authors, shows, blah blah, blah they will be into. Because as soon as you sort of broaden it out, it becomes a different kind of proposition. So you can of course look at, and I'm going to just get my paper here because I'm going to do some notes as well, you can of course look at other books and other authors that do write similar genre, similar themes. They have a similar style, perhaps. And you can aim big on this. It doesn't have to just be, sort of little sort of newbies or anything like that. Could be the biggest author in the world is fine. But what we really want to do is start piecing together this puzzle of who your readers are, so we know how to identify them and then to market to them. And this is basically part of the work that we do at Lit PR, but it's often in collaboration with the author, because as the author, you know your brand better than anyone else. So we're going to take some time to brainstorm, and I really recommend that you take some time later to brainstorm, because obviously in a half-hour session we don't have that much time. In our 10-week course we would allocate time and we'd discuss our feedback and blah blah blah, and feedback on our results and stuff, but right now we haven't really got the time to go into too much detail. So just off the top of your head, have a think and focus more in on the competitor or the comparative films and TV shows. That's where I want you to think about to start with. The reason why I want you to think about that is because most marketing agencies don't start with that, and we like to do things a bit differently. They immediately jump to the comparative books. But actually, I think there's a lot to be said about looking at Netflix series, films, especially if it's trending at the moment, or if it's like a big one, that everyone got onto, like, Peaky Blinders on the TV, or Oppenheimer last year, the Barbie movie, all this stuff that people kind of really get behind and chat about. And even if you've not watched any of those, people that will have done, and the sorts of people in your friendship group or your circle that will have done that. So have a think about it. I'd love you to come up with one or two that you think are probably going to be the same sorts of audience as you've got now. Okay, so just literally 30 seconds of just quick fire, what comes to mind. It might be that it's your favorite film or your favorite TV show, and that is often the case, because obviously you're writing what you know a lot of the time. Don't worry, Lisa, I won't quiz you on it. But it is a really good thing to do. Top of your head, who do if you met someone at a party and they said to you, oh, I really like this film and that film and these sorts of TV shows, do you think I'd like your book? It's that kind of thing, so it's not too deep. It's not too deep, I promise, but it does really, really help to think about it. So is there a documentary? Is there a real life type film? Is there, it doesn't have to just be fiction, or it could be fiction, but it's got some themes in it that are similar. It could be that it's actually nothing like your book, but that the people who watch that would also be quite interested in reading your book. Okay, so that's step one of our very quick process tonight, and then we're going to start thinking about what the old publishers do all the time. So there is a reason why they do it. We're going to have to do it. But thinking about competitive and comparative authors. So like I say, it's not necessarily somebody who writes like you do, but it's if a reader likes their book. So you can kind of do them both at the same time. So we've got comp authors and we've got comp books. And the reason why I don't always kind of group them together is because authors don't always write the same style of books, the same place settings, the same themes, of course. Some authors like to write, romantic fiction based in Scotland, around castles, for example, and it's very specific. But most authors I know tend to branch out and do lots of different things. So have a think about that as well. And you don't have to do that right now, but I just wanted to get the kind of creative juices flowing a bit tonight. And like I say, the idea being that if you were to bump into a literary agent or a film producer, whichever one of these is kind of the one that floats your boat the most, so it might be a journalist, a librarian, a literary festival organizer, whoever you're really wanting to speak to, and you'd be like, oh, this is amazing, I'm so happy I'm getting to speak to you. We're trying to work out how you would be able to briefly and in an interesting way describe yourself as an author and the sorts of books that you write. And the idea being that as we go through this session, and indeed you spend some more time on it afterwards, that we're going to work on what they call an elevator pitch. Now you might say, well, I've already got an elevator pitch, but honestly, it's very, very worth going back over that. It's probably been a while since you've looked at it. So we want you to be able to just reel this off, if it's like at any situation, oh, I'm an author who writes da 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 for people who like blah 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 blah. It's that kind of thing that we're trying to get to. There's a bit of a difference between an elevator pitch, which is more you talking about you and your brand and the books, and the strapline for each book that you write. And I'm going to explain that now through the power of giving you some good old examples. So a strapline for the book can often be used as a subtitle for the book as well. And often what happens is that subtitle, that strapline, that comp author, comp book type work that happens right at the early stages of a book being created will follow it through the whole process. So it kind of goes from idea generation, pitching, early manuscript adoption, right through to the marketing, the sales, the editorial, the cover design. It's used on social media, it's used on adverts, it's used all over the place. So you can really see how easy it is to get it wrong and it then just follow you through. So you really do need to sort of like nail it as best you can. But it's also an evolving thing. So again, it's all about looking at the keywords that work for you. It's looking at the sorts of readers that you want to attract, that kind of thing. Well, Joe Wicks, we all know who Joe Wicks is. Feel Good in 15. It kind of really does just do exactly what it says on the tin. 15-minute recipes, workouts, and health hacks. So it's all around the 15 number. Recipes, workouts, and life hacks to change your life in just 15 minutes. So it's based on the idea that we're all so busy that we can't do anything more than 15 minutes. So his sort of strap line there is 15-minute recipes, workouts, and health hacks. This one is quite a fun one that I draw upon because I like the fact that she's put in there, or they've put in there, a TikTok sensation. That is relevant because it's a YA sort of rom-com, and I think that's really important for a lot of those sorts of readers, that they want to know that it's very popular with their peers. And the sort of pitch, the elevator pitch, the strap line for that is sparks fly when a competitive figure skater and hockey team captain are forced to share a rink. But the fact that they've led with a TikTok sensation is so interesting to me, and shows the power of adding something in there like that if you're a author with multiple books out there. This is an author that we've published at Hashtag Press, a lovely lady called Denise, and the strap line, the tagline is "Who said you can trust family?" and we decided to put that on the front cover. So it's a strap line, it's a subtitle, it's in a lot of the advertising and marketing that we've been doing around it. We've also decided in the very small blurb about the book to put in a signpost, a cue for the sorts of comp authors that would be partnered with this book. So fans of Cynthia Murphy and Holly Jackson, because she's a debut author. She's only done one book before, and it's, she's still very early days in her career. So we really needed to make sure that we could signpost who this book would be for. And obviously there's other signposts and cues like the cover, of course, but that strapline needs to stand alone. So now you're thinking, well, this is all very well and good, Helen, but how do I actually do this? So here's some top tips of how you can actually do this. So you can go to your local bookshop. So if you're in the States, obviously Barnes & Noble or whatever, or your indies, Waterstone's over here. You can search on Amazon, so you don't even have to leave the comfort of your home, and just have a look at the bestsellers in your primary genre. You might want to start with your number one genre and then move down the categories. Most books have about 3 genres that they're linked to. If your book's not out yet, then you've got all this fun to come. So looking at the sorts of genres and categories that you want your book to be associated with is always a good thing for you to be involved in. And then, of course, you just look at the sorts of words, the keywords that stand out in those books. You'll probably see a bit of a pattern, actually, in terms of the sorts of book keywords that are used in terms of their intro and their strapline and their blurbs and stuff like that. And then you can really start mapping out some trends and seeing how the books in your genre are actually described. This isn't cheating, this isn't copying, this is very much doing exactly what traditional publishers do, and right through to the smaller presses. They really look at what's trending, because the whole point of releasing a book is that you want to reach as many people as possible. It's not necessarily about the money, but it's about how many books you can get into people's hands most of the time. And therefore, you do want your book to be commercial and stand up in its own right. You can also do a good old Google search. I love a bit of Google searching, as you know, for keywords linked to your book's genre. So you can just see what comes up when you tap in some of the keywords that you've got. So do your research, create a list, and then see what comes up. The other thing that's quite fun to do, if you're open to it and there's no pressure, is to put it into ChatGPT and see what they suggest comes up in terms of other keywords that could potentially work for you. You can also look at what's trending on socials, of course, and ask friends and family what they're watching on TV and what they're looking forward to coming out in the cinema, because it's a good idea to have a classic, kind of a film that everyone knows that you can refer to, but it's also quite a good idea to talk about a TV show or a film that's trending at the moment, so you can kind of really tap into how relevant your book is right now. And then, of course, just keeping an eye on the media. They're always talking about the latest books, the latest shows, films, blah, blah, blah. And it's a really good idea just to keep an eye on what's going on in your readership audience group. Okay, this is the whole point. It's not kind of a wide, just looking at everyone in the genre, very much trying to then nail it down to the sorts of people that will be in your readership. So some top tips here. Firstly, keep an eye on your competition. Know who your competition is. Probably should have been the first one, but know who your competition is and then monitor them. What are they doing online? What socials are they on? What sort of descriptors are they or their publishers using for their latest books? What sort of topics are they talking about on socials? And you just need to keep on top of that, basically. So once you've done it, that's great, but you then need to keep a bit of an eye just on what's going on, what's trending, you know, update your keyword spreadsheets, just keep on top of that and be quite consistent. That's one of the 10 C's. It's the last 10C in our author brand framework is consistency, and arguably is the most important one, because when we mapped what made authors successful in the long term, the overriding, overwhelming, quite surprising, I guess, factor was the lack of commitment to consistency, which is obviously a human trait, and we get bored, we move on, we think it's not working, so we give up. But those authors who are now on their 4th, 5th book are seeing the rewards from that. Those authors who have been marketing their book for a year after it came out with consistency are also seeing more success. So there is something to be said for consistency, for sure. And this is one of the things you can do that you will really see a benefit from. It will help you, so it's worth doing. Here's some other examples. I won't patronize you and read them all, but just to give you some examples of different types of genres, for example, and just to give you an idea of the length of these sort of strapline kind of descriptors, and how they work. And each genre does tend to have a different thing. So, for example, a lot of the time in sort of thrillers and mysteries, you might get a question, sort of maybe a rhetorical question. You often get a sort of it's part this, it's part that, just again to give you some cues as to who the book would be for. And of course, it works in multiple genres. This isn't something that only works in fiction. So non-fiction is usually very much cueing how the book is written by an expert, whether that's a professional expert, personal experience, or a combination of both. And that credential for the author is often included within the book's descriptor or strapline, which I think is quite interesting. And obviously that is kind of what you're buying into, is their knowledge or their research or whatever, or their experience. So and again, lovely idea for a picture book there is kind of setting the scene of when you'd actually when you'd actually want to read this. So getting together, the words cozy and snowy day and stuff, you know, it's just nice, isn't it? Right, we've got 10 minutes to do what I would usually spend an hour on, so I'm not going to go into loads of detail on this, but I just wanted to introduce the idea of an avatar for you, and then we're going to look at it in a bit more detail tomorrow. So an avatar in marketing terms, for those of you who don't know, and again, I don't want to patronize anyone, is basically a sort of a target customer. So in the case of books, obviously it's a target reader, and we do this for all the sort of bigger campaigns that we do. And it's a fun thing that we do, because we basically, as I said yesterday, we kind of give them a name and we give them a picture, and we really drill down to who we think they are. Now, the whole point of marketing is that you should never try and market to everybody, because nothing is going to be of appeal to everybody. Okay, so you have to try and get niche, but not too niche, and you don't want to be too generic. So this is about kind of helping us to nail some of that. It's quite difficult to do, but it's also quite fun. So hopefully you will enjoy doing it, and I do recommend you do it. I recommend that you do at least 1, but ideally 3 avatars, and they would be different types of people, because your book won't only be of interest to one demographic. No matter how niche a book is, there will be subcategories within that demographic that will be of interest to you in your marketing perspective. So the example that we're doing here is a real life example that we have done for a PR campaign in the past sort of year, well, probably about 6 months. It's a financial mystery, it's a thriller fiction, it's a novel, and it's set at Christmas. It's got multiple place settings, but the main one is London. and it's sort of a Dan Brown type thriller, mystery, suspense, work out the, crack the code and solve the puzzle. So that's given you the context, just so you can see how we then do this. Let meet Freddie, everybody. It's lovely, isn't he? So obviously, what you would do, what I would recommend you to do, is go through these questions and answer them for your own avatar. So this kind of gives you a template, a structure of how you do this. Okay. So gender, it doesn't have to be included there, but he is most definitely identifying as a male. You might say that the gender is, not applicable for your reader, and that's also quite interesting to know from marketing perspective. Age, late 30s, location, he lives in London, family setup. So by this I mean, does he have family that he lives with? Does he live on his own? Does he have children? Is he married? Does he have, for example, this could be divorced and kids have all moved on and grown up and left home. It could be living with parents, it could be living alone. There's so many different family setups. And again, it kind of informs the sort of person that you will be targeting. You're getting creative with this. This isn't, you don't know this person, okay? This is, you might base it on someone, but you're getting creative. This is absolutely fictional, even if it's for a non-fiction book, okay? So it's interesting to think about the sort of stage of career that they might be at. So obviously it's a financial thriller. So obviously we've put him in the financial sector. And he's doing well in his career, blah, 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 blah. So therefore he's got some money to spend on books, blah, 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 blah. Hobbies. So he, what sort of things he does, whether he realistically does have the time to read, when he would have the time to read is kind of what we're trying to ascertain from that. But also if there's any connections. So for example, gyms and sports clubs often have like communities and networks that we could potentially tap into to reach these people. So it's not just from a getting to know him, it's from a working out how we can get to people like him perspective. His favorite TV shows, things like Succession, which is one of my favorite TV shows, obviously murder mysteries and thrillers, and then his favorite authors. So this is where we start matching up some of these comp authors and comp books with the avatars. And where does he get his book recommendations from? This is a really interesting one, because this really starts getting into the nitty-gritty of where we need to be talking about your book. So he's very much a sort of chat with your mates, get word of mouth recommendations, which most people are. But we did do a survey last year, and I'm going to do it again just to find out if this is still the case. But I put in a number of different options for where people get book recommendations from, and the most popular one was social media. So never underestimate the power of somebody else talking about your book on social media as well as you talking about your book. But the power of someone else talking about your book is really where, the gold is at. He also looks at Amazon, looks at like the bestseller lists and that sort of thing, and probably also listens to podcasts because he has a lot of time going to and from work and in the gym and stuff like that. It's also a good idea to find out where he gets his news sources from and how kind of up to speed he is with stuff like that. Just because of the type of book this is really important. But it's also quite interesting just to get a handle, like, news sources, doesn't really read or monitor the news, but reads, a women's magazine once a month, has a subscription to Good Housekeeping. There's so many different things that could come up here. And then traditional media, what sort of traditional media would he consume, which you can then go on to another step, which is when and where and how. Is it podcasts, is it on his phone, is it an alert, is it a newspaper? Where does he consume his media and how is quite interesting. And obviously what media. So he obviously reads the Financial Times. He has to do like business and banking kind of magazines for work, but then he also enjoys a weekend newspaper and all the supplements that come from that. So quite fun. Hopefully you can see how this could then lead to other stuff. And tomorrow we will talk about how we will then go on to the next level with that information. So if you have got time between now and then to do that, to go through these questions, maybe take a screen grab of it now, or I can email them over to you. It's entirely up to you, but it's a really good idea to try and get a bit of this work done so that tomorrow I can then start explaining to you, right, so this information, this is how you use it, so that you actually get some, you know, actionable results from this time with us. This is a link to a masterminds group. So basically, I just wanted to let you know that this group exists. It's for people who sign up to the course. So whether you sign up to the 1-day intensive, the 10-week course, or the DIY course, which is basically you have access to the 10 weeks of content and you do it in your own time. However you consume that course, you get access to this Facebook group for as long as you need us. Within that, there's a very active community of authors and my team and myself, where we will feedback on lots of things like this. So if, for example, you did want to sign up to the course, and I'll give you more information about that as well tomorrow, then you know you get access to this, and it's a really good place to share information. So there are other Facebook groups around as well, and other writing groups and writing communities, and it's definitely worth you having a look at those, because you know, getting that peer support is super, super important. Okay, and in terms of the homework, so like I say, I think it'd be a really good idea for you to have a think about those questions, but also if you get a chance, have a look at the comps, so the films, the authors, the TV, the books. Try and keep a list. You have to do this tonight, by the way. This is whenever you get time. Build on your keywords list. So you know, do some research, do some digging into those comp social media profiles, their bios, their websites, blah, blah, blah. And then have a chance, if you have a chance, to have a fine tune of that elevator pitch, and ideally also your strapline for your book. So elevator pitch is a bit more about you. So if you met someone on, you know, on the street who was somebody you really want to speak to, like a film producer or a literary agent, and they said, oh, tell me a bit about you and the books you write, boom, that's that. If you were on a radio interview or a podcast interview and they said, tell us about your latest book, you could say, oh, it's this meets that, and then you say the strapline. Yeah, so it's quite a lot of information to share, and like I say, in the 10-week course we go through this in a lot more detail. Interesting to see the answers. If you haven't given me an answer yet, I'd really appreciate it if you did in this quiz. So the question is, what's your favorite part of book marketing? And so yeah, always interesting that at least one person said all of it. Love that. But the brand building does seem to be coming up, and the content creation, which is, yeah, quite important and not too surprising. And they're the two things that we cover in that course. So right answers, team. Right, does anybody have a question? If you do, I think it's probably best to unmute yourself and just fire it at me. I've seen there's no questions in the chat, so. Hi, Anne, do you want to?
Yeah, I can go. Grace was waving goodbye.
Oh, I think she was saying goodbye, yeah, because she has to go exactly at half. Nice to see you, Anne.
Yes, you too. Thanks so much. It's so much information, not that foreign, but so helpful to hear. I have a question, because the talk about the different avatars was really interesting. So my book is nonfiction. I don't like saying self-help, but personal growth.
Yeah.
The Artist Way, Big Magic Spirit, whatever. But you know, that genre tends to be focused for women. And I
Yes.
want to, like, in my book is pocket size. I'm trying to disrupt everything about the genre.
Oh,
So like I would love to tap into men. And so could I like play with an avatar of a male who'd be
absolutely. This is where it gets exciting for me. I love disrupting things and making things different, turning them on their heads. There is no reason why men shouldn't be reading more self-help books. We know that men do need to read more self-help books or get some kind of help with a lot of these issues. And I do think that actually a lot of them do read self-help books, but they just don't really talk about it. I also think that a lot of men that I know through work consume self-help through audio in particular, and ebook. Which is really interesting. So if, for example, you're going to do an avatar, you could put something like, you know, they listen to podcasts, they have an Audible subscription. One website, one app that I noticed is doing particularly well, so I actually downloaded it to do a bit of research, which you may well already be aware of, Anne, is Headway, which is so Headway, so Headway, and it basically, you pay for a subscription and you get access to bite-sized chunks of content from books, so like the top learnings of books, which is really and again apparently very popular with men. So if you've done a pocket size, that's going to work quite nicely, because I think the idea is they want something more digestible.
I think they might have reached out to me twice in this week, and I've never said that I'm writing this book online. I'm not sure,
Whoa, how weird
somebody
is
like,
that?
but it had like Simon Sinek and Mel Robbins and like big names on the cover. So thanks for mentioning it. I might actually pay attention to that. Because I
Wow,
have like
that's a
a
little
social
sign from the universe. I think they're out there.
that was wild. Yeah, because the
Yeah.
whole book and
Wow.
cover, like, and it hasn't changed. It's like meant to be like gender neutral and playful and like black and white. And so, but here, having you here say the audio and the ebook is really interesting too. And it was funny because I met a Cosmo journalist at a friend's party once, and she's like, and I like I show it to a few people, and she said, ooh, this would be really interesting for Cosmo. Like if it's like the next generation alternative artist way was like my pitch for that. But then lately I'm like, oh, you don't know the artist way. And I'm like, crap, I gotta find another, but
Yeah.
she also writes for men's health. And she's like, that would be it. And I was like, I'd actually rather get into men's health than women's health. And yeah, and I'm based in Paris, so I just like, I'm trying to tap the whole world all at once.
No problem with that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that sounds all very exciting, and I think you should tap into the men's space for that 100%.
Okay, thanks for that little seed and plant.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, let me know how you get on with Headway.
Yeah, I'll look it up right now.
Yeah, you need to. It's really interesting. Alice, Matthew, have you got any questions? All good. Hopefully I'll see you tomorrow night, where we can kind of wrap up the bits that we've done. As I say, this course really does go into a lot more detail, so I think you'll find it helpful. I know, Matthew, you signed up, but I think it'd be really helpful for you guys to think about considering doing that course, because there's a lot to this, and I just wanted to give you a taster. But I appreciate your time. I appreciate you giving me half an hour, or an hour and a half in total. I hope you do get a time to do some of this work. I'm going to just save this quiz now, because I always find this really interesting. And yeah, have a lovely rest of your day, wherever you're based, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care, everyone.